Ask anyone who has worked in and around college athletics for anything over 30 seconds. They've always claimed, college athletics that is, to be about the amateur athlete, but that fraud's been stripped bare far too many times. Players want to be paid for all those hits and hoops, and the NCAA has been fighting it tooth and nail. But now, the NCAA has lost in court, at least a little. And will they have to shell out tens of millions of dollars to the athletes eventually? Look past the headline. Dig into the facts on this and more. Let's welcome the man who invented the concept of commenting on and covering sports business, the sports professor, Rick Horrow. All right, Professor, let's get into this now. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld a judge's decision. NCAA amateurism, violate antitrust laws, but struck down an injunction that would have compelled schools to pay the athletes cash. Wait, right back at the beginning again? Where do we go from here?
No, we're a long way away from the beginning. The Power Five conferences, those big guys who are part of the playoff system, understand that horse has left the barn, if that's the metaphor you're supposed to use. And the bottom line is it's no longer whether these guys are going to get paid, but how much. The O'Bannon case was about names and likenesses and promotional material and licensed goods and all. So when there's a 15 quarterback with a Florida jersey and it looks like Tebow, you ought to get some. But the idea of who to pay and how to pay them going backwards doesn't really mean it impacts the guys going forward. Going forward, there will be dollars. It'll be guaranteed. There'll be scholarship money, and the athletes are in a lot better position they were when this lawsuit was filed.
So take a guess then, from your knowledge of the NCAA and from the law itself and what we saw here. What are we looking at here? A year, 2 years, 5 years before we will see players in all NCAA sports paid something? Get away from it and go.
I was ready to hop on the answer until you changed the question. The basketball and football players are going to get paid quicker than the rowers and the golfers just because of the revenue that's produced on a relevant basis and on a ratio basis. And that may not be fair, but that's the way it's going to be. And the bottom line is the NFL players who are destined to play there are probably going to get some significant scholarship money fairly early. And the high school superstars are going to get fought over by the Power Five conferences, same on the basketball side. So I think the athlete's going to be paid on the men's and the women's side. It's going to be staggered based on how much and who and what sports.
Do you think, and again, let me jump on that, because do you think it'll come to the time when they will say, all right, look, basketball, football, hockey to an extent, and certain other sports, you make money, but the golf program doesn't, this program doesn't, so you don't deserve it. They'll split it that way?
Well, the bigger issue is whether there's going to be enough budget money for these programs to survive. Title IX has kept the women's sports afloat. Why? Because they had to do it. And now the issue is there's budget money required, but there may not be budget money produced. So you're going to have alcohol sales at stadiums. You're going to have stadiums named after corporations. You're going to have retail deals, longer and easier terms. So the athletic directors are trying to find the money to pay these people. It's no longer a question of whether they're going to be paid, but the question is what bank it comes from.
All right, about a minute left. Speaking of big money, let's go back to the National Football League here. Deflategate. Now it looks like it won't get settled until maybe around Super Bowl time. Come on, Rick. This is perfect. If you're going to go back to court, come on. No, you have to stick with it. If you're going to go back to court, it's great to do it right around Super Bowl time, isn't it?
Well, listen, the appellate court hearing it in February, those are hearing the arguments. That's not making the decision. I don't think we're going to have a settlement on this stuff, frankly. I think we're going to let it end the way it should end in a court because, frankly, they had their chance at a settlement already. And I think the NFL thinks they've got a winning appeal, but 4 months from now, we're not talking about Deflategate, not least the frequency with which we talked about it last year.
I will agree with you on that. 30 seconds left. The German Football League president has called on FIFA President Sepp Blatter to resign immediately. Do you see him leaving any time before he makes the call himself?
No. And because he thinks he's in power, the process still defends him. There's probably not going to be an inquiry that reaches his level that quickly, but the Swiss government started a criminal investigation, so this ain't over.
10 seconds. I know you're a big Miami Dolphins fan. If the Dolphins lose to the Jets, then is that the end for Joe Philbin? Come on.
It is a long bye week for Joe Philbin. I can't guarantee his departure. You know why? Because the Dolphins are going to beat the Jets.
Really? Okay. I'm glad we have that down on tape right now because we're going to make sure to play this for you next week. Look, you've got people here at the studio hoping that you are right. So does Joe Philbin, his wife, and everybody else. But the realtor is still looking, as a matter of fact.
Dolphins bye. Dolphins bye. Hey, talk to you next week.
All right, you do that. Rick Horrow, the sports professor, thanks for joining us. Stay with us. The fastest 60 minutes in news, The Hard Line, will continue.